Hey y'all. So today it's Briar versus Ice Lexi, and let's get right into it. I'm still trying out the Explosive Growth Belittle deck, see how that fares into Lexi. My theory is that it is going to be slightly more resilient into Lexi because of the high number of blues that this version runs. But in the end, it is still favored for Lexi. I would say it's like a 60-40 in favor of Lexi. Um, Mostly because Lexi just has a decent chance to just whiff. And the other side being that, we do have blues, we have Belittle that can find us a blue and try and pay for the tax effects. So in this game, my opponent won the die roll and they chose to go first. They want to set up that 6-card hand to come at me, to come at me with the following turn. Yep, so they do the classic. Um, Load an arrow face up and then put a card face down arsenal. So they have a 6-card hand for turn 2. We were definitely very fortunate that we drew Chalmont Heroic on turn 1. So, we can come back at Alexi with a 6 damage dominate from this overload, which will get go again on hit. And that's kind of the only way I feel like Briar. I mean, like I said, it's a 60-40 matchup, and so you really need to get slightly lucky, and you need your Lexi opponent to get slightly unlucky if you want to try and win this. And Lexi, of course, terrible at blocking, so I was pretty confident this overload will get go again, which means I get to Amulet of Earth after the overload and bank on the embodiment of lightning that'll create me. Yep, and then we go ahead and play the Amulet of Earth, get the embodiment of lightning. Also, remember your embodiment of Earth triggers into Lexi, they're gonna be very important. So in this matchup, I'm definitely looking to try and do a more mid-rangey style of game. Like, I want to come at my opponent with, like, CNCs and snatches, just, like, efficient attacks, hopefully with threatening on hit. Because there's no way I'll be able to keep my full 5-card hands. Because, like, Lexi will tax you. I won't be able to keep my 5-card hands, so I need to try and be as mid-rangey as possible. Alright, opponent starts with an Art of War. Very dangerous card. They pick Go again and banish draw 2. So this way they can give the Chilling Ice Vein that's in the arsenal Go again already just from the Art of War. And looking at my hand, unfortunately we did not draw a blue this time, but we do have Sonata, which could potentially draw us into a blue. We do run some blue attacks here. Ideally, if we can do that, we can come at our opponent with the CNC, which is very threatening for Ranger, especially with Chalmont Heroic on the field. So opponent fires off this Chilling Ice Vein fused. This coming 5. And we know there's going to be at least one more arrow after this, potentially 2. So if we want to avoid the attacks, we're going to need to block out with our entire hand and come at our opponent with nothing. Which is terrible when I have Chalmont Heroic on the field. So I decide I'm just going to hedge. I'm just going to hope that there's only going to be one more arrow coming in after this. In which case I can just pay for the tax by losing one card, which is the Pulse of Candlehold, and keep the rest of my hand. Yep, so I go ahead and say no blocks, pitch this, have the one float, so even if one more arrow comes in, I can still pay for it. I'll just have to take the damage, and on my turn, I can snatch with the Go again, hopefully draw into blue, and then CNC. And then, unfortunately, our opponent puts in another red Chilling Ice Vein, which messes the whole thing up. Like, we knew they had an Ice Quake in hand. We knew they would need to pitch a card to come at us with another arrow. So it's likely there's only going to be one more arrow. But the fact that that arrow is another Chilling Ice Vein, meaning that now if I want to pay for the tax, I'm going to need to lose another card. That totally messes up the plan. So now I figure I'm going to need to let go of this CNC Dream, block with it, and equipment. And yeah, and then our one floating just goes to waste. So here, we're just hoping to get really lucky here with the Snatch. Ideally, it draws us into a blue, in which case we can, follow up the Sonata, pitching the blue into it, and then do more things after that. This Snatch is coming in for 7, and one thing to remember is that as much as Briar hates blocking, Lexi hates blocking too, which is why cards like Snatch and CNC are really good against them. Like Lexi just, they either block with the arrows or the rest of the cards are blocking too, and this Snatch is coming in for 7, so... And they have no armor, so if my opponent wants to block this out completely, I'm getting at least 3 cards from them. So opponent takes 7, get my embodiment, and this Snatch had go again from the embodiment of lightning that we banked the previous turn. And we did get very lucky, we drew into a blue, so now I get to Sonata, pitching 2 into it. And again, I mean, I have to admit, I got pretty lucky here. Drawing into a blue and then hitting 2 off of the Sonata here. So my opponent takes 2 arcane there. And exactly, this is a kind of thing that makes Snatch a very scary card. When a Briar plays a Snatch, so stuff can just like chain. And also, I mean, we did end up with Snatch and Sonata in a hand, which are both cards that draw you into more cards. So we go ahead and play the Belittle, and we reveal the Explosive Growth to it, and I just find a blue minimalism here, because my play after this is just going to be to make a Rune Chant and Rosetta, so I can arsenal the Explosive Growth. And in the excitement of hitting 2 off of Sonata, my opponent and I both forgot that Channel Mount Heroic is still in the field, so we both thought this Belittle was only coming in for 3, when it should have been coming in for 6, but... Alright, so I kind of missed 3 damage there, that was on me, for forgetting about a Channel Mount Heroic. So there we go. Yeah, we managed to get lucky and get a super strong turn there. And pass it over to our opponent. Right, opponent starts by flipping up the red Icequake that we knew was there because they revealed it to fuse the previous turn. We got a Frostbite, and so looking at my hand, I kind of just want to come back to my opponent with a CNC. I'll be totally okay blocking with Lead the Charge with the Snatch. Maybe some equipment. And just try and CNC my opponent on their turn. Okay, and the opponent comes in with 3 of a kind, so we're unlikely to be able to CNC our opponent here. Okay, and they start... And then they play the Icequake, again meaning that every attack this turn is going to give me a Frostbite if it hits. And they use their last floating to Bolting Shot, giving a +1 from Voltaire, so this is coming in for 8. And I definitely have no hope of blocking this, because if I want to block this, then you give them like 3 cards. So at this point I realize I'm probably just going to need to abandon the CNC plan again, block with this turn, and probably just do a Snatch on my turn as like the only attack I can possibly do. So, yep, we just take the 8, we get the second Frostbite, opponent gets the reload trigger off a Bolting Shot. Okay, they reload a Channel Lake Frigid, and then they play it from Arsenal. Remember, this is a 3 of a kind turn, so they had to have reloaded it to have been able to play it. So that kind of, yeah, messes up everything. We might have had the option to keep our entire hand and just CNC opponent on the next turn. Like pitching into Tunic and get the extra resource and like CNC. But the channel messes that up. Because if I let this attack hit, I go to 3 Frostbites, CNC now costs me 6, and I won't be able to use Tunic because channel's on the field. So I definitely just need to block the CNC now. So we go ahead and do that, and this way we can still just play the Snatch on our turn. It will cost us 3 resources, and we have a blue for that. Yeah, blocking with Our second CNC, definitely very painful. It's probably our strongest tool into Ranger. So we go into the snatch, although, I mean, we aren't threatening anything aside from 4 damage. Because even if we get the draw, like, I can't tunic creepers out anything because Channel's on the field. And my opponent knows my arsenal has an explosive growth, so I obviously can't creepers that out either. Yep, so opponent takes a 4, and honestly, the most significant on-hit trigger there was actually the Embodiment of Earth. Right, opponent flips over Endless Arrow. Loads Chilling Ice Vein with Voltaire, gives it go again, and fires that, showing me another red Ice Quake. So again, well, the fact that we see the red Ice Quake means that we can't just try and block out our opponent this turn, because next turn is going to be even worse. So we do need to come back with some pressure this turn before they get to, play the red Ice Quake on the next turn. So I'm going to do the same thing which I tried to do in turn on my opponent's basically first actual turn of the game, because they went first with their second turn, where I'm just gonna not block this at all and just pitch a blue to pay for all the tax effects. Because if I pitch the blue, this means that 2 more arrows can come and I don't need to give my opponent any cards, and I still have a blue in my hand for my next turn. And that's what I mean by about this version of Briar being slightly more resilient to the tax effects. I can give my opponent a blue and still, have a blue on my turn. Yep, no blocks, take 4, pitch a blue, and float 2. Opponent then loads a Bolt and Shot, giving it +1. This is coming in for 5, the same on hit as a Chilling Ice Vein. And I will, just use one of my 2 floating to pay for that. So my opponent has no more floating, which means that if they want to come at me with a 4th arrow, they would need to Endless Arrow, use Snapdragons, and Bullseye Braces for the Endless Arrow to come at me again, which would force me to, either block with a card or pitch another card for the tax effect. If my opponent wants to do that, then I would block the 4th Endless Arrow, and I would call that I would say that's a fine trade. Like, yeah, fine, you get a card from me, but you lose Bullseye and Snaps. And remember, the Bullseye is the only source of Arcane Barrier, which is actually relevant because this version of Briar runs a lot of arcane damage, like Vexing Malices and Arcanic Crackles. So my opponent decides not to go for that line, and they figured shooting the Endless Arrow then would just be more damage since I am already floating 1. And they decide to just move ahead to Arsenal so they have a 6-card hand on the next turn. So we just start with a double Minnowism, get an Embodiment of Lightning, and then use Tunic to play Explosive Growth, which means we get to keep our fuse card in hand to be able to fuse. So now this is coming in for 1 Arcane, 9 Physical with Go again from the Embodiment of Lightning. Okay, opponent uses the Tunic resource to just pay for the Explosive Growth. Kind of bummed about that because, that's, 1 extra damage. Okay. Again, Lexi showing us, how they are actually also really bad at blocking. My opponent declares no blocks, and I pop the Amulet of Earth right there. In this matchup, I can't get too greedy with it. I'm going to need to, pop it, when I can. Get 1 damage off of it, that's fine. And then Explosive Growth triggers, and then I make a Rune Chant and Swing Thorn. And here's where, there's another sort of rules error here. Since making a Rune Chant breaks the chain, the Thorn should not actually be getting the Explosive Growth buff, because it does care about the chain. So I erroneously added 1 damage here. But I did also erroneously miss 3 damage early in the game, so let's just call it even. Anyway, so the Rune Chant plus 2 and 3 does threaten lethal here. So I'm sort of forcing my opponent to give me a card, or, they lose their Tunic. Yep, opponent takes 3 arcane here, and then there's 3 physical coming in. Yep, and they give me a card for that. But they still come at me with a 5-card hand, so this is still looking scary. We do have the life lead, but, you know, against a Lexi, like, Lexi with a 5-card hand, like, the Lexi opponent has the tempo. Okay, they flip over that red Ice Quake that we knew was there. Oh, and then they do another Channel Lake Frigid. That is, yep, not what we want to see. And then they 3 of a kind. So opponent has seen 2 3 of a kinds this game and an Art of War. Okay. And they did not whiff by the looks of it. You know, like when they sort of blind 3 of a kind and just draw the top 3, I'm just sitting here hoping my Lexi opponent whiffs and draws no arrows. But them playing out this Ice Quake probably means they didn't whiff. And on our turn, if we can somehow Bramble Spark fuse and play the Explosive Growth, we don't even need the Explosive Growth to be fused. We just want the Bramble Spark to be fused. Which we can do through 3 Frostbites. I can pitch, you know, the blue Explosive Growth to play Bramble Spark, keep the Tomb of Harvest in hand to fuse the Bramble Spark with, and then pitch the Tomb of Harvest for Explosive Growth. That would mean the Explosive Growth is coming for 2 instances of Arcane and 6 physical, which would definitely get cards from my opponent. So I'm hoping I can just use my 18 life lead here and my remaining armor to keep my whole hand and do that. Which means if we get hit by 2 more arrows, I'm still okay with that. So opponent loads in Sleep Dart, giving it a go again. Sleep Dart's coming in for 8. Sorry, correction on what I said earlier. I can't do that through 3 Frostbites because of channel on the field. I can only do that through 2 Frostbites. So I'm going to need to block this turn. So again, since I can't really stop this 8 damage without giving my opponent like most of my hand, I decide I'm going to take this on hit trigger and try and block the Endless Arrow, which I know is there. Oh, no, actually don't block the Endless Arrow, because I want to force my opponent to use this Snaps and the Bullseye Braces. Yes. Because if my opponent wants to, you know, threaten more Frostbites, threaten more damage, like anything, they're going to need to use those pieces of equipment. Oh, so my opponent actually loads in another Endless Arrow. So they don't want to get rid of the Arcane Barrier, because I guess, yeah, at this point they've also seen what my deck does. Also, that's actually one of the creators of this deck. So he knows there's a bunch of Arcane Barriers, so he's hesitant to use the Bullseye Braces. He just pitches an Endless Arrow to load the Endless Arrow. And he chose +1 over here instead of go again, which means we do have the option to, you know, just take this, but then we go up to 4 Frostbites and channels on the field, in which case our turn is, you know, it's still like terrible if we don't block at all, so I might as well block this. Also denies them an arsenal. Yep, so I go ahead and block 3, the Bramble Spark, Grasp, and Tunic. I figured this game's not gonna last long enough for me to get another Tunic activation. So I go ahead and just get rid of it. Alright, so opponent doesn't have an arsenal, and we still get to come in with an attack. This Explosive Growth costs us 5 resources total, through 3 Frostbites and channel. It's increasing the cost by 4, so costs 5, we pitch both our blues for that. And the arcane damage and Explosive Growth always happens. It's only the increase, like the triggers that it gets, where it buffs everything on the combat chain, that only happens if it's fused. But of course, at this point, our opponent at 3. Also, we have no way to come in more attacks anyway. I don't really care about the fuse, I just care that it's basically a 4 damage attack. Although with our opponent not having an arsenal, this sort of frees them to, use New Horizons to block. So, yeah, pretty good play by our opponent the previous turn, giving the Endless Arrow +1 instead of go again. Because if they give it go again, they're sort of forced into using the Bullseye Braces, losing the Arcane Barrier, and, if they... Or if they don't fire it again, they arsenal it, and then, this turn, blocking a New Horizon feels bad. Although, just based on the fact that the opponent did give us a card, I guess that means that they have no way to use that card, so they still have their New Horizons active. And they fire a Sleep Dart. Also, we did not get an embodiment on the previous turn, despite the Explosive Growth Arcane hitting, because we got hit by a Sleep Dart the previous turn. So they fired a Sleep Dart, and they gave it go again. So this is really scary. This is a very, very scary situation. Because, I mean, they gave it go again, which leads me to believe the last card in their hand is an arrow. At the same time, my opponent could be bluffing, and that last card is actually just a Rain Razors, or a pump, or like a Lightning Press. But them giving a go again sort of baits me into thinking that's an arrow, so I might not play around the Rain Razors, and then they Rain Razors me. So that's what's going through my head right now. And ultimately, I decide that if that is a Rain Razors, I cannot afford to play around it. So I decide no blocks, which actually, looking back, I think it was a mistake. I think I should have blocked 3 to play around Rain Razors. Because then if they Rain Razors, I still survive at 1. I don't play around Lightning Press, but I play around the Rain Razors. Or actually, no, what I should have done was I should have blocked with Chalmont Heroic and Creepers. So I play around both Lightning Press and Rain Razors. Because at this point in the game, like, I'm not playing out this Chalmont Heroic. It's just too expensive. I think I got married to the idea of playing Chalmont Heroic and then playing Overload on my turn, which is just, it's too greedy. I should have played around Rain Razors or Lightning Press there by blocking 4 and that Sleep Dart. Instead, I said no blocks because I wanted more information on what my opponent's doing. Which is definitely a mistake because, I mean, say it is another arrow, then, I've already blocked. Like, I'm still at a high enough life total to, say, just give them 1 more card. Whereas if that was a pump spell, I just die on the spot. So anyway, then they Bullseye Braces and come in with this Blizzard Bolt, coming in for 6. We still have Creepers and Skullcap. Now Skullcap is on. Oh, yes, now I remember, yes. So that was why I wanted a Sleep Dart. I wanted to take the damage in the Sleep Dart, was so I have another usage of Skullcap. Which, yeah, it was way too greedy. I should not have done that. I should have just accepted I'm not getting a Skullcap usage this game. Like the second Skullcap usage. So looking at this hand, my best play is actually just pitching the Sonata and trying to hit something off of that. Just an Overload as the attack is not going to cut it, because my opponent has New Horizon and Tunic, just block it completely. Chalmont Heroic isn't going to do anything. So yeah, I just need to bank on hitting something while my opponent has no Arcane Barrier. So I go ahead and pitch in a Sonata, and we get 1 hit, but that 1 hit is an Arcanic Crackle, which means our opponent takes 1 arcane damage now, and I play the Crackle, they take another arcane damage, and they just die to that. So yeah, I was really banking on hitting like a Vexing Malice or an Arcanic Crackle off of the Sonata, which we do run 3 of each, so it's not that unlikely. Or even if we get like a blue attack, then we can just, make a Rune Shunt and Swing Thorn, and that's another instance of Arcane to kill our opponent. So yeah, we managed to get there against Ice Lexi. And this is what I mean by, we had to get lucky. And I guess our Lexi opponent didn't get too unlucky. I guess, I mean, they did see 2 3-of-a-kinds and an Out of War. They didn't see any Rain Razors. Maybe you could say that's unlucky. But we definitely got lucky early on in the game with that snatch into hitting 2 off of Sonata. I'd say that was that was what gave us the life lead to be able to, just take hits later on and just keep coming back with like just 1 attack hands. So yeah, that was the game. Thank you for watching and hope you enjoyed it.